Hello. She said, do come through, do come through. She said, she looked at me and she said, would you like to freshen up? And I wanted to say, this is the artistic look.
Is it true that actually cousin Paul does get you to do sculptures for him?
Yes, I did. Actually, I always quote that he is my first real sort of supporter, sponsor of my work. And he, when I said to him that I was setting up my own studio and I was going for it alone and setting up a studio in Shropshire where I live, he said, right, do you want to do one on Linda? And she just passed away. And I said I would be absolutely honoured to do a sculpture of Linda because I've known her my whole life. And he said, yeah, he said, you knew her, you'd be a great person to do it. And I did a life-size bronze of her, which is up in Campbelltown in Scotland. So, so one little funny story he told about it was, it's a life-size figure of her sitting on a boulder. And originally we went down to his office and I said, you know, how do you want this sculpture doing? And he said, well, I said, how about a horse? He said, no, it's too cliched. And I said, how about her seated, holding an animal, maybe a lamb? And he said, yeah, that'd be nice. And he said, yeah, he said, can you put something on the lap if she's going to be seated? He said, because all the Stetsons will turn up. And I said, the Stetsons? He said, yeah. He said, that's what Linda and I used to call the fans, that they would just turn up. The Stetsons, yeah, he calls them. I don't know why. Because they come from America, I suppose. And they turn up, and he said, and they will all sit on her lap, the bronze sculpture lap, and they'll have their photo taken with her. And he said, and I said, what would she have made of that? And he said, she'd say, get these fucking bastards out. I said, would you like that inscribed on the base of the statue?
And is it true that you brought with you some sculptures of prima donna to sell?
Oh yeah, life-size bronzes.
Peter, I believe you've met Paul McCartney at once, because back in your past you were involved with lots of musicians and touring Sweden.
I was in a car crash with him. The Beatles went on their world tour, the '64 tour, and came to Stockholm, and security must have been absolutely lousy. And my father was the promoter, so it was probably his fault. Anyway, it was black with people around the aircraft, and we were sort of floating, the Beatles and I and some other people floated on top of all these people towards the limo caravan. And suddenly I found myself inside the limousine with the 4 Beatles. And they looked at me and they said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm, you know. And then the caravan took off and the police sort of sped along and to go up and get away from everything. And then the 2 motorbikes that were behind the car actually crashed into the car when it made a turn. And we all sort of fell over in the car, and the Beatles shouted, why does everybody go crazy when we arrive? And Paul sort of took out his cigarette, a packet of cigarettes, and gave me a cigarette, and I didn't even smoke. The menthol down, all right. And I smoked that for about 12 years after that, because I thought it sounded like a good idea.
And I believe that another famous UK Eurovision artist played a part in your life as well?
Oh, you mean Cliff?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Well, I toured with Cliff when I was, just started out when I was a roadie, and I toured with him and drove his car and sort of looked after him and so forth. And he played at the China Theatre in Stockholm with the Shadows, and I drove him away from there to the Grand Hotel, about 2 blocks away. And when I came out from the hotel afterwards, took Cliff upstairs and came down, and the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen stood outside and said, I've watched you get in the car with Cliff and I watched you come out. Can you get me his autograph? So I went up, I got the autograph, and she's the mother of my children.
Paul, Yes. I have to say, there's a strange resemblance that you bear to one of my favourite musicians ever, and I just trying to think who it is. Is there anybody?
Elvis.
Elvis! You do look like Elvis. Why?
I enhanced the image a little bit. It's my day job.
What? You're working in the chip shop?
Officially work in the chip shop. No. Yes, I am an Elvis tribute artist. One of many.
Wow.
Yeah, but it wasn't something I'd planned. The whole thing came about completely by accident. I mean, I decided after Love City Groove finished, and I'd taken therapy for about 10 years and hadn't sung a note that I was going to take up singing again. So I got a job at a place called Potter's, which is where they film the bowls from once a year, complete with a live band, and it was a lovely show, the Oh Boy show. And they said, listen, if you're going to be part of the cast, we need to know, can you do Elvis? And as any jobbing singer knows, you just say yes to everything and worry about it later. So I said, yeah, of course, you know. Got up with the band, had a go, and everybody loved it. So work started flooding in. And then it was a case of, okay, now do I get the jumpsuits and join the other brigade of Elvis impersonators, or do I do something a bit different? So I put together my own show, and the first year we toured it, it was very successful, and we're still touring it now. So
fantastic. Can you give us a quick burst of Elvis?
Do you really want me to?
Yeah.
When no one else can understand me, when everything I do is wrong, you give me hope and consolation. You give me strength. That's what I'm going to do. If you want to come and sing this show, you'll hear the rest of it.
Can you do Elvis, Kate?
Wouldn't that be great?
I'm wondering this way, because I don't know if anyone in the room's got any questions, but I know that Brian had a question.
Don't worry, it's not going to be rude. Well, no, I can try. No, the Robin sisters. Oh, how fabulous are you two? And you've got another fabulous sister. Absolutely. Oh well, I was talking about Emma, rather obviously. Can you try and persuade her and the Sheilas to represent us at Eurovision next year, please? Oh, yeah. How fabulous. And we get our household insurance with Sheila. Sheila's, and they are very good.
Sheila's would be a great Eurovision act, because they are all three of them fantastic singers. And do you know the advert? Sheila's were da-da-da-da, Sheila's were, yeah. But they're all really good session singers. And if you ever go and see them, I don't know if you've ever seen them, they do a lot of gay festivals and stuff. I don't know why that is. And they are brilliant, actually.
Because all of them are singers, you get a real show. It's not no sort of like miming to stuff.
They're just called the Sheilas.
Cracking singers.
I get all my insurance from comparethemeerkat.com. I want the meerkat. Anthony, you had a question.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Anthony Ping from Southampton. My question is to Jane. How would you describe your Eurovision experience as a sculpture?
You weren't expecting that one, were you?
I wasn't expecting that one.
You said they'd ask things like, you know, what's Cliff Richard really like?
Yeah, what's Cliff Richard really like? We'll have that instead.
Do you mean as a sculpture or sculptor? Do you mean...
Sculpture.
How would I describe it as a sculpture?
Yeah.
A lot of gesture, figurative poise, and realistic portraiture.
Beans, how would you describe Love City Groove as a sculpture then?
Just as she said it.
Oh, you're always so derivative, aren't you? Asking you guys, do any of you guys watch Eurovision anymore?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think of Eurovision now? 'Cause, I mean, what do you think of Blue for the UK?
Well, they're mates of mine, and I love those guys, and I did try to dissuade them to to not. I didn't think it was a great move for them as a group. What did you think of the song? It's all right, yeah. I mean, they're all such great singers and they're all so gorgeous, but I just thought it was such a risk. You know, where did they come? Was it 11th?
11th, yeah.
I think it's a great show now. I think it's better than it was years ago. It's fantastic. It's got everything. But you know, the year that it really turned for me, Eurovision, was the year when Riverdance came on. What year was that?
94.
I love the way they all know.
Oh, I know.
It's brilliant.
But I mean, do you think, I mean, you obviously work with sort of modern artists, I sort of use the term loosely. I mean, do you think any of them would be prepared to represent the UK? I mean, following Blue?
Are you saying somebody that's out there now selling records?
Yeah.
Do we think a well-known celebrity?
Because I mean, if you ask everybody in the room, we've all got our own ideas, 120 different ideas.
Well, I mean, other nationalities put forward their biggest celebrities a lot of the time. And the thing with those celebrities is they're not just known by their native state, they're known by, you know, other countries surrounding. So it pulls in a lot of votes. The downside is, you know, that artists are risking a lot. If they built up a reputation, they get nil poir. If they get nil poir, you know, it's a big risk.
Stick my oar into the Eurovision argument. I think that it's UK's sarcasm that is shooting ourselves in the foot.
I think you're right. I mean, listening to Graham Norton, who took over, did a reasonable job. You know, he's a very witty guy, but you could see him holding back. Because I think there was a lot of controversy about, you know, from abroad about how we don't take the show seriously. And if anybody was going to rip the show, you know, the way that Terry Wogan would have done it, it would have been Graham Norton. He's good at doing that, but he didn't.
And in Europe, they literally celebrate song, and that's what they're doing. They're celebrating Europe, and they're celebrating singing. And I don't think the UK does that.
Well, no. And also, I mean, our culture is a lot more sarcastic, it's a lot more sardonic, and, you know, so we like to think we're cooler than everybody else, and but I think they're trying to change that. I think, you know, I don't know if anybody noticed this year there was a slight difference in the way it was approached. I thought there was. I think
it has to be an artist who's not known to represent the UK every year. If you have a known artist, it's a...
Yeah.
It's a song contest, it's not an artist contest, and I think if the politicians can't get it right, bureaucracy can't get it right, the Eurovision Song Contest is a unified Europe once a year, and it's a great theatre for that.
Fantastic. Luke?
Yeah, my question is both to Prima Donna and Love City Group. Basically, what were the BBC like with you from the moment you won to the moment you got to Eurovision? Did they leave you off on your own direction, or did they kind of shepherd you to do stuff?
Oh, they were good. They were very helpful with us. It was Kevin Bishop was flying the flag at the time, along with Terry, and they looked after us very well. We went to Dublin. We had our great big tour bus and many hangers on, and we travelled all over the many parties. And they were very supportive, and they played a few jokes. So do you recall them? I recall just as we were about to go on stage, we were leaving the green room, just about to go on live in 1995. And Terry Wogan came running up to me and going, Beans, wonderful news. I said, what the heck? Yeah, okay, what is it? So the live estimated television audience for tonight's show, it's 500 million. Good luck.
We recorded a video for Love Enough for Two the day after we'd won the UK heats, you know? We were all hungover. Do you remember that bloody awful video on horseback? We were on these, what do you call those massive horses? Shire horses. We were on, it wasn't a big word, was it? We were on Shire horses. Anyway, Alan Coates fell from one of the Shire horses, bolted, and he bust his arm. And he only just got his arm back in the nick of time for May when we went to The Hague. And he was still in court suing the BBC. In 1984, so yeah, 5 years later. So they weren't really that great, the BBC.
Peter, when you did Eurovision 2000, how did you find the other national broadcasters, and did you find them good to work with, or with the BBC prima donnas?